Oh, we're back. Welcome back to another episode. All right, so today is November 5th, 2025. We're kicking off the brand new month, and I'm super excited today to introduce you a very special guest. Let me pull up all his profile information just so I can be able to read this on camera. Let's see. Let me go to my notes section right here. Let's share this. Okay. Make sure I do this man justice. Okay, here we go. Mark Brezzell. He's a trailblazer in medicine, wellness, and diabetes advocacy, a former cardiovascular perfusionist, and the first African American graduate of the Johns Hopkins School of Perfusion Sciences. He brings a rare blend of scientific expertise and lived experience to his mission of transforming health as well as outcomes. After many decades in cardiovascular surgery and medical affairs department across many industry sectors, Mark founded his own wellness and advocacy platform dedicated to empowering communities through education as well as lifestyle, longevity, and disease prevention. Living with type 1 diabetes himself, his journey inspired the forthcoming book, A Matter of the Heart, My Unexpected Journey with Diabetes, and is currently available on Amazon, Barnes& and Nobles, and other platforms. Through his speaking engagements, partnerships, and outreach, Mark bridges science, faith, and purpose, challenging audiences to turn their health challenges into a life of impact as well as advocacy. Please, please, please put y'all hands together and let's welcome this brother to the stage. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on before we welcome this guy to the stage. Where's my clapper? Where's it at? Here we go. Mark.
Sir,
How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
Man, I had to get that right. Hopefully, I did you justice, but I'm
Yes.
super excited that you and I were able to join. And this is going to be a very important conversation that a lot of people don't even know about. Man, I mean, I titled this Before You're Sick and You Don't Know It. And I got that from you because you were living with this disease for so long. But before we get into all that, is your professional bio, did I read that right?
That's correct.
Okay, let's go ahead. Introduce yourself to the rest of the world personally. Who is Mark Brezzell personally?
As you read in your bio, like I said, I started off. I'm clinically trained as a cardiovascular perfusionist. We are the part of the three-headed monster in cardiac surgery. For many people that aren't familiar with that particular profession, and so yes, I was involved in cardiac surgery for many years, about a decade. It's interesting. While I was in the hospital, one of my roles was also to kind of help with new product education. And so I would, meet with many of the sales reps that were coming in, and we would talk and it was just a discussion with one of those guys, that, hey, with your background, you'll do great in this role. You do great on the business side. I'm like, thought about it. And I said, well, no more call, no more, midnights. Maybe it's something worth looking into. But so I just took a chance, and I jumped out of the hospital sector. I was picked up by a couple of startups that didn't work out, and then that kind of, developed kind of a relationship. Once I learned the role of a particular called the medical science liaison with various organizations, that gave me a true insight where I'm able to talk science, I'm able to talk medicine, I'm able to communicate with other docs and other experts in the field, meeting various doctors around the country. And it's gave me such a great foundation for networking, because even today I still have relationships with some of these guys and various people around the country say, hey, Mark, I need a doctor for this, whatever. You got a recommendation? I could call some people and so it comes in handy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Before we get really deep into your background and the topic of the day, I want to remind people that the comment box is wide open. Okay, I'm going to make sure I open it up so I can see your comments as they come in. Make sure you leave a comment, but more importantly, drop your first name, where you're streaming from around the world, and then you had to help me out too, like what channel, whether this is YouTube, whether this is Facebook or LinkedIn, where you actually seeing this. It'll help out with my algorithms and my marketing efforts as well. So today we're joined by Mark Brezzell. He's a cardiac perfusionist. And a lot of us out here in the healthcare world, we're like, a cardiac perfusionist, what in the hell is that, man? So help us understand, what is a cardiac perfusionist?
Well, basically, we're our clinical specialists that are part of the, like I said, part of the heart team. We're the ones who actually operate the heart-lung machine. So when our surgeon is operating, we have to stop the heart completely from beating so he can operate. So he's able to have a clear field. And by doing that, we streamline the patient. We give medicine that actually streamlines, his heart rate. The heart is completely flaccid, completely off. And the heart lung machine now transfers all of that and becomes his heart and his lungs. And so we're able to maintain, even though the heart is stopped, and as he's operating, we're maintaining the patient and we're managing the patient while the heart is stopped. So that's our major focus.
That's intense, man. I mean, literally the person, they're no longer living. You're keeping them alive through the machines.
That's right. The heart is not stopped. They're alive, but it's just that we are now maintaining blood flow artificially versus through the heart, which normally will pump.
What, really quick for everybody else that want to know, like, what's the process for becoming a cardiac perfusionist? Walk me through that.
Well, it's for most programs, you have to have a bachelor's in science. So either a bachelor's in pre-medicine, they've had a bachelor's in nursing, or you have a bachelor's level in one of the allied health professions. So if you have a BS in, let's say, in respiratory therapy or whatever, any of the allied health, you have to have at least a bachelor's level to be eligible to get into the program. And then they have master's level education for once you're trained as a clinician. And then once you get through there, you go through kind of a similar, you do internships and you find other hospitals. You can decide to branch off into either pediatrics or adult. Then they do a lot of other little things as well. Heart transplant support. For me, I was able to, from time to time, we transferred a lot of our patients. The hospital that I worked at was not a transplant center. So if a patient needed a heart transplant, we would sometime travel with the team to transport the patients from our hospital to a transplant center. And I lived in Ohio, Toledo. So either at the University of Michigan up north or at the Cleveland Clinic east of us. So those were the two places that we would transfer our patients that needed potential heart transplant.
That's so interesting, man. It's so life-saving. Is that something like do you need CEU credits to continue your education with that?
Yeah, at the time, yes. I'm no longer licensed because, our particular profession is, you have to do it to be eligible to be licensed or get your certification. So we had to have a minimum of 45 cases at the time for you to even be eligible. And so for me, once I'm stepped away from the hospital, there's no way for me to maintain that. And they don't have a pathway in perfusion for you to just pay to have your license, extended. So
got it. Listen, if you're just now joining, we're partnering today with Mark Brezzell. He's a trailblazer in medicine, wellness, and diabetes advocacy, a former cardiovascular perfusionist, and the first African-American graduate of the Johns Hopkins School of Perfusion Sciences. Yeah. He brings a rare blend of scientific expertise and lived experience to his mission of transforming health outcomes. And we're just now digging into his background, how he became a perfusionist, why, yes. And now we're going to dig into the topic of diabetes. Now, I understand this is near and dear to your heart. So yes. Let me understand, talk to me about diabetes and why are you so passionate about this particular topic?
I'm passionate about diabetes because I am a diabetic. I've been a type 1 diabetic for 25 years now. And it's kind of funny because most of my years has been basically just trying to survive as a diabetic. I wasn't really interested in educating anybody per se. It was just basically survival. But when you get to a point later on in your years, and I'm starting to see all the different comorbidities and challenges that the people were having, and then it just became apparent to me that maybe I need to talk a little bit more about this and really share this information, because as you learn things over the years, you see things. I decided, you know what, I want to be more proactive in helping to alleviate and educate various individuals that either had diabetes or at risk of getting diabetes, raising awareness, particularly within our community.
You mentioned, did you say 20 years? You've been living
25.
25 years. And what type of diabetic are you?
I'm a type 1 diabetic.
All right. So for all the viewers and the listeners out there, what's the difference between type 1 and type 2?
Well, it's interesting. Type 1 diabetes is autoimmune. So basically, my body, when I became a type 1 diabetic, my body decided that it didn't like my pancreas and it attacked it. So many, autoimmune diseases, your body is triggered, and instead of it recognizing it as a part of your system, it contributes or thinks that it's an enemy, and then it tries to destroy it, try to attack it. And that's what happened with with me. And that's why type 1 is insulin dependent, because your pancreas is pretty much ruled ineffective, and it no longer has activity as a result of the constant onslaught of the body's immune system.
So will you ever not need insulin?
No.
No, you won't, or no, yes, you're going to always need it.
I will always need insulin as a type 1 diabetic. In fact, it's a stressful, if you look at it from the context, if it wasn't for insulin, type 1 diabetes is 100% fatal.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I mean, and so that in and of itself contributes to some of the psychological impact that a lot of people don't even, aren't even aware of when it comes to diabetes. Because you think, well, I'll just take this, I'm good. But with diabetes, type 2 diabetes is more, the cells of the pancreas and sometimes are dysfunctional. So it's either they don't recognize the insulin, or they're not producing enough insulin. So you have that insulin resistance component of that, where type 1 diabetes is more insulin deficiency, because it's not producing anything. And that's why you need the diabetes given to you artificially.
So how did you find out you was a type 1 diabetic?
That's an interesting thing. When I was in the hospital, I remember about a year prior, ironically, one of the anesthesiologists pulled me aside and said, "Hey, Mark, he came from a conference. He said, let's try to see what we could do to improve our outcomes in patients, and wound healing and all that sort of thing, after surgery." So we would put together a little protocol and try to work with him on it. What's interesting is that I had gotten married in 99. I got married, and about 6 months into my marriage, I started exhibiting all these weird symptoms. I just started noticing that I used to drink pop, or soda, for those, depending on what part of the country you're in.
Right.
Like water. Just all of a sudden, my wife would say, my new wife at that time, was like, "Mark, why do you drink so much?" I'm like, I just have a sweet tooth. Didn't think anything of it. But then it just started to transition. It went from that to, I started to lose weight. And I just had, I was active. I rode my bike, was very active, but I was just losing weight. I ate like a horse, but didn't gain anything. And I was just losing more and more weight. My clothes started getting bigger. And I'm like, this is crazy. But still, even with that, having that background, doing some things in diabetes, or, in dealing with diabetes, it was always the outward thinking. That couldn't be my issue. I don't know what it is, but it's not that.
Not you. It's not you. Yeah, exactly.
And I remember, I guess the getting close to me figuring this thing out. I was laying down. I was home. I was post call. Got home early, and I jumped up to answer the phone. And I just remember that my eyes, it was almost like it was a glare in my eyes, and I had to kind of squint. It's like somebody was shining a flashlight, and it kind of just died on down. And I thought that was bizarre. And I'm like, what in the world? But then it died away, went away, and I'm like, But the final straw to that was when I was coming home. I got off work one day. I was at post call, so it was early in the day, and I went to the bathroom, got my stuff, got dressed, was driving in the car, and halfway home, I had to go back to the bathroom again. I'm thinking, no, I wasn't drinking. I mean, this is crazy. I'm like, what? And so I had to hightail it to a store, and I went to a drugstore, which is actually down the street from my house. And I went in there, and after that, I decided something's not right. That's what kind of clued me in, because when that happened, now I was starting to piece things together. I'm like, this can't be it. So I went to the store. I went to the pharmacy section, and I bought me one of those, over-the-counter urinalysis tests.
Yeah.
And that sucker came back positive. I was floored.
So I didn't even know they make urine tests to test diabetes. Two, what I would like to know, and I'm sure the audience would like to know, how long did you experience all these symptoms until you actually decided to do something about it? I think that's important. How many months?
It was months. Probably, man, I would say, because I started, even after I got married, I started noticing things. But again, it was just little things here that you didn't really put two and two together. It was just a little thing. This would happen at one time, and then it will not happen, and you kind of blow it off, or it's not something that was reoccurring. The thing that was reoccurring was my weight loss. When I started continuing to lose weight, pretty significantly, that's kind of caught my eyes. caught my attention. And also, like I said before, my appetite, this ravages appetite without any weight gain. And I'm thinking, well, what's going on? I actually did go to the doctor. And this was, and I'm like, what's going on with me? I can't gain any weight. They didn't even test me. I was just went to the doctor just for just to say, hey, am I okay? He didn't even test me for diabetes at that time, but it wasn't until later that I was tested. So I would say probably around 6, 7, 8 months of dealing with this.
And I mean, from a lifestyle standpoint, what changed?
After I became
After you found out you was a type 1 diabetic?
A lot changed because I had to watch what I was eating. When I was initially diagnosed, I was actually diagnosed as type 2. Okay. So I thought that, well, okay, they just put me on medication. And so I said, well, I figure if I watch my diet, if I exercise, I might be able to reverse this thing. But there's a test that they give you. So if your audience or anybody, if they offer you a test called a C-peptide, that's the test basically they're trying to determine the activity of your pancreas. Is your pancreas active? Is it producing insulin? And my levels were dropping pretty linearly. It was pretty significantly, and to the point where it's just a matter of months. I went from a type 2 to type 1, which probably means that I was type 1 all along.
Right.
But that's initially they weren't really. It never really plateaued. It just kept going down until my last C-peptide came back, and it was pretty much, I was done. And that's when they put me on insulin permanently.
So we titled this, "You're Sick and You Don't Know It." So that's going to lead me into this next question. And I'm sure the audience really wants to know about this. Help me understand some of the pitfalls and misconceptions as it pertains to diabetes.
I think one of the biggest pitfall is thinking that, you didn't take care of yourself, or you just or you ate too many cupcakes.
Okay, yeah, right.
Which is not true, particularly with type 1. Type 1 is autoimmune. Type 1 could be genetic. Type 1, they don't really understand the cause of it. They don't know what causes a person to be a type 1. I mean, their baby's not born, as type 1 diabetic. So, but yeah, that's that. And I think the other pitfall or myth of that is that if you have type 1 diabetes, you can reverse it through some mechanism.
Right.
And that's,
we all think we can get better, right? I mean, right. Yeah.
Type 2 diabetes is reversible. Type 2 diabetes is diet, is exercise. You may not be on medication, or they may put it on for a short period of time, depending on your body, depending on your lifestyle. But type 1 diabetes is regimented, autoimmune. There's no way that you can reverse that. Now, there's new research out there. There's new things that they're doing, stem cell research and cell, research, that sort of thing, where they're putting stem cells into your system, and your body is now regenerating and you're creating these new cells that will start to generate insulin in the pancreas. But that's, if it's outside of that, that's the best you could do. Now, type 1, I should say type 2 is through diet, through exercise, you can control it. And there's other medications that some people might be on if they can't control it very well. And if it's really more so uncontrollable, then they may give you a short stint of insulin to kind of moderate everything, to try to control it there through diet and exercise and medication.
And can a pancreas be replaced, kind of like a heart or a lung?
Well, there's not really a big push for that, because the problem with replacing the pancreas is it's not the cause of the issue. It's autoimmune. So it means that if they put a new pancreas in you, your body is still going to not recognize and attack it. Right now they're doing research to try to figure out ways of triggering it. Kind of down. How can I put it? Downgrading the insult of the pancreas, where you're trying to fool the body into not thinking that the pancreas is your enemy and attacking it. So there's a great amount of research in that as well, where they're looking into. But usually, if your body doesn't like it, then and if there is any chance for that, usually it's for someone with type 2, not a type 1 diabetes.
Is it likely, if your parents have type 1 diabetes, that you as a child, you're going to have type 1 diabetes too?
There's always that possibility. Or not even as a parent, it could be a grandparent. It could be, further on down the road. My brother was also a type 1 diabetic, but he The reason why I didn't think I was applicable to to that was because even though he was a type 1 diabetic, he was diagnosed in the military. He was only, I think, 20 years old.
Okay.
And he actually injured his leg, and then they gave him a steroid. And within 3 weeks after getting that shot, he was in the hospital, and then they diagnosed him with diabetes. The shot itself had created a reaction where the body took out his pancreas. The weirdest thing. Can they explain it? No. No one, there's no mechanism of understanding how that worked. But that would be considered another form of diabetes. Even though he's type 1, it could be considered type 3 now, because they have all these different derivations. But type 1 and type 2 is the main. And then there's other forms where you have the other one would be a gestational for women that are, for the women that are listening to this, if you have gestational diabetes during your pregnancy, be leery of the fact that your chances of becoming a diabetic later in life jumps up to between 30 to 50%. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on. My next door neighbor was an OBG, and she's like, Mark, let them know that if they're gestational, they keep an eye on that thing. And I said, I will do that. And then when you start getting to some of these other types of diabetes, a lot of it is just, for example, it's an accident where you may damage the pancreas, or it could be from medication. I think similar to what my brother dealt with, where some drugs can also cause dysfunction.
What does diabetes look like in the African American community? Because I understand we're more at risk. Am I wrong?
Yes, we are. And if you want to look at numbers, according to the American Diabetic Association, American Heart Association, we think about this: 20 years and older, almost 20% have diabetes in the African American community. That's it's unprecedented, and I've got some statistics here, they reveal the disparities that exist compared to non-Hispanic whites. You 1.8 times more likely. We're 1.8 times more likely to have diabetes. We're almost 50% more likely to develop retinopathy if we have diabetes, which is a condition where the optic nerve, the vessels in the eye, because of the high sugar levels over time, starts to weaken, and so that causes issues with with your eyes. You're 2.5 or almost 5-6 times more likely to suffer from kidney disease, which is an offshoot and complication from those having diabetes. Again, diabetes affects your cardiovascular system, and the vessels in your system are impacted by high amounts of sugar over a period of time. And then we're almost 3 times more likely to suffer from lower limb amputation as well as a result of peripheral vascular disease. So it impacts us big time, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I just recently worked with a company that part of our device development strategy was developing devices for peripheral vascular disease, or diseases below vascular disease below the waist. And just to let you know that if you know somebody that has diabetes, that has poor blood flow below in the lower limbs, and they're talking to you, well, they told me that they have to amputate. Tell them to get a second opinion, because amputation should be the absolute last resort. If there's still blood flow, if there's still healthy tissue, they have ways of going in there and opening up the blood flow in the lower limbs. And also, even with diet and exercise, you can reverse it as well. Amputation is only when you have a cell death, on the tissue death, I should say, and gangrene, or if there's just significant problems within the lower limbs. That's when amputation may become necessary. But before you get to that point, there's a lot of intervention that can be done prior to that.
So, I mean, you gave all the stats of why Black people are at risk, or African American people are at risk. I'm interested in knowing this, and maybe maybe you don't. Is that genetics, or is that more economical? Meaning, we know a lot of us, we don't live in the upper echelons of neighborhoods and have the best access to healthcare, and oftentimes we're surrounded by some of these poor choices from eating, and and things like that. Is it more that, or is it just because our diet or our genetic deep composition? Yeah, I'm trying to get it right.
D, all the above.
All the above.
I believe, I don't know if it's all necessarily genetic. I still think that there's so many social, there's so many psychologists and psychiatrists that focus on the impact of stress, the impact of social, disparities within the system, that this impact of being stressed and under so much disproportionate. Look at the times we're living in now,
Right.
where that's very impactful. Yes. And then I think the biggest part of it is what you just said, is socioeconomic and the lack of access. For years the doctor was not our best friend. I mean, normally we've reached a point where a lot of, because of either expense or again access, our doctor has become urgent care or the ER. And when you're talking about a condition that requires monitoring or condition that requires surveillance, where maybe you're tested to find out, oh, you're at risk of something. And if you never go to the doctor unless you have some sort of symptom, then you run a higher risk of having negative sequelae and consequences. When you do present, sometimes your presentation may be more severe because you're sitting on 400, 300 sugars for months or a year, not even aware of it. Just notice that you get lightheaded, you feel this, you're not feeling your best. Then you decide to go to the doctor and they find out that your sugars are sky high or something like that.
You mentioned the ER, and you also mentioned urgent care, which you and I know those are both reactive types of care as opposed to preventative. And preventative, you mentioned, if we have a doctor that we see on a biannually or annually basis, that's more preventative maintenance that we should be leaning into.
And take advantage of if it's an insurance issue or if it's a cost issue. Many churches or many faith-based operations, they have health fairs. Go there and get a free screening. Let them check your blood. Let them see what's going on with you. At least give you a clue as to, you need to get this checked out. Let them check your pressure and make sure your pressure is not, is within normal range. But there's opportunities out there for you to take better care of yourself. And then the two, as I said before, you better than anybody. Sure. If you're not feeling your best, if something feels off, don't sit on it, because it may be something worthwhile, worth getting looked into. And as I always tell people all the time, I rather them telling me it's nothing for them to come back and tell me, you know what, I wish you had come back here months ago.
And something you could have prevented yourself.
Something you could have prevented. That's right.
Mark, we're going to be wrapping up here. We got a couple of minutes, but I want everybody to know, I just put Mark's QR code on the top right-hand corner. So if you want to grab your phone right now, it's a good time. Take a picture that has all his contact information in there, ways to engage with them as well. Mark, before we close this thing out, man, I understand you have a book, right?
Yes.
What's the title of that book and what is it about?
The title of the book is A Matter of the Heart. This is what you can find it on Amazon. Also, you can find it online on Barnes & Noble. And basically, I wrote this book. You remember I was telling you when I had a chance to talk to my friend and he was telling me about his experience. I wanted people to understand that diabetes, sometimes it carries a stigma. There's a lot of people don't really understand all the dynamics around. Again, well, you didn't take care of yourself and you ate too much. It was a dietary thing or a lifestyle thing. But I wrote this book to help people understand, first of all, that it's not necessarily just that, and also the psychological components that really we take advantage. We miss the boat in that regards. I've looked around when I wrote this book. I looked around at other diabetic books, and most of them talk about the pathophysiology. Very few talk about the psychological components. You have a condition that you could be 6 days perfect, 1 day off, and that 1 day off can have life-threatening consequences. So it's difficult. When I was first diagnosed, I was angry for years because I was trying to live healthy. I didn't feel like that fit the criteria of someone at risk for that, not understanding the genetic components of it. And it just was difficult. And now I also want the caregivers and friends and family of a diabetic to be aware of what to look for. If a person does have diabetes, a lot of times he may snap at you. He may be his emotions may be up on one day, down another day. All that is related to his condition. Don't criticize or crucify someone who has all of these things, because his sugar and his body is under a constant onslaught. And he goes through a series of emotions. So be, cognizant of that sort of thing when you're dealing with a diabetic patient.
Mark, let me close this out really quick. Listen, I want to thank everybody out there in the world for joining us today. Today, we was joined by Mark Brezzell. He's the trailblazer in medicine, wellness, and diabetes advocacy, a former cardiovascular perfusionist, and first African-American graduate of the Johns Hopkins School of Perfusion Services. He brings a rare blend of scientific expertise and lived experience to his mission of transforming health outcomes. After many decades in cardiovascular surgery and medical affairs department across industry sectors, Mark founded his own wellness and advocacy platform dedicated to empowering communities through education on lifestyle, longevity, and disease prevention. Living with type 1 diabetes himself, his journey inspired the forthcoming book, A Matter of Heart, My Unexpected Journey with Diabetes, and is currently available on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and other platforms. If you look in the top right-hand corner, there's this QR code. You can scan that. You can also book Mark for speaking engagements as well. Mark, listen, I know we're at time, but I want to thank you for this opportunity, for educating us, enlightening us, and sharing your story as well as background with us.
Thank you for the opportunity to do that.
Appreciate you.
Your health is your greatest asset.
Got it.